Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Steven Browne and joining me is Chris Bell. And we've also got Sporting Life's Tom Carnduff. Tom, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you.
So Leeds United, what can you say? What can you say about Leeds United? We get that fantastic win against Wolves. Everything's looking rosy. We're going to the international break. Bad news about Tyler Adams, obviously, but then this international break, Max Verber, Willie Gnonto, both injured, definitely out of the Arsenal game. I think Gracia has now ruled them out. I mean, what do you think, Tom? It's just typical Leeds, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at least in a weird positive, they go into it on the back of a win against Wolves. Imagine if that game, I mean, if they had lost it full stop, if they'd thrown away the 3-0 lead as it almost came to be, the picture would look a lot worse. It's a massive shame. Obviously, Adams was kind of an injury, a longer one in terms of we knew about it before the international break, right? Verber for me is the big one. But I suppose you can take the positives in that at least you say this and maybe it'll change, but at least it doesn't look like, Tyler Adams, who we know may well now miss the rest of the season. At least there's a bit of positivity there. So, yeah, a big blow, but at least they're going into this on the back of a win because it would have been looking a lot worse if they hadn't picked up that 3 points at Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that game at Wolves, it was an insane game. But I mean, Javi Gracia, now it's 4 games, couple of wins. I mean, he's really doing a good job, isn't he, at the minute? It's such a shame that these injuries are coming and it's another test for him. But, he's standing up to it, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the wins have come, obviously the expected one or the must win almost against Southampton. That's 7 points from 12 for him, isn't it? That's the one game where they didn't win was Chelsea away. And regardless of their troubles, that's always going to be a difficult game. And it was only by the narrowest of scores, really. Brighton, a fantastic team. We said before, anything they get against Brighton's a bonus. They got that point. That was a bonus, regardless of how that game played out. So Grazia's impact has been probably more than they would have hoped for, because even that Wolves game, you're looking to go, okay, they've seen an upward swing in terms of their results and really dragged themselves out of trouble. So to go there and to score 4 goals as well, probably one of the biggest criticisms of Leeds was it's great they're getting results, but well, defensively, they look like they've sorted things out a little bit. Where are the goals going to come from? And I know Grazia's spoken in the past, hasn't he, about you as a coach are able to coach those goal scoring chances into players. That is something a coach can control, and they're starting to score goals now as well. So yeah, his impact's been brilliant. It's just a shame that now he has to deal with these couple of injuries. But I mean, if you want a positive, looking around the press conference notes today, and we'll get some more tomorrow, Leeds are not the only team in there. Teams like Forest are having injury crises of their own. So at least you can cling on to that. But yeah, very impressed with Gracia.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in terms of who's going to come in and deputise Wells, these players are. I think. I do agree with you. I think Verber is the biggest miss out of the 3. I mean, what do you think he'll do there? Is it Cooper? Does Stroik get a go? What do you think he'll do with that one?
Yeah, it's a bit of flexibility, isn't it? I mean, potentially you think Cooper for the more leadership type angle that you come in, and I think this role probably will suit Liam Cooper a little bit more now, being that squad player, that club captain, the player who can come in. And I think that'll allow him to have more of an impact. But Pascal Struijk as well, kind of with Junior Firpo not only coming back into the team, but his form since coming back in, that at least frees him up to play that left-sided centre-back slot. And we know how good of a player he is. So in a weird way, at least there's options there that just haven't been there in the past. Leeds have worked with such a threadbare squad in all positions, even Adams in midfield. Well, there's Rocker, there's McKennie that will now have to work together as they have done. So yeah, I probably would be leaning towards Cooper, and I think that's particularly in a game like Arsenal, you want that more experienced leadership type player. So I think it will be him, but in a weird way, you're kind of glad that these problems are coming when you're going to the league leaders, the Premier League champions, to be away where you're not expecting anything. Imagine that Southampton at home, the pressure's elsewhere. So yeah, I think he'll probably look to experience, which does make sense, really.
And it'd be interesting as well, these players like Stroik going through the Gracia filter as well. It's not going to be that kind of crazy Jesse Marsh style either. It may, in fact, suit Stroik, if he did get the opportunity. Yeah, in terms of the midfield, then, so we're looking at kind of Rocker and McKennie now for the rest of the season, I guess, going forward in that central midfield position. What did you make of them as a pair at Wolves, and how do you think they'll complement each other? Or are you a little bit worried that there's not going to be that midfield destroyer there in the form of Adams?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we're still fully implementing into the Xavi Gracia way of playing, and the international break has probably been a help to them, although, of course, McKennie's not been around, but at least they've still had the opportunity to keep working. I quite like it in terms of the players. I think McKennie's almost a similar style to Adams, that he's that kind of, you mentioned destroyer, but that annoying type player. You know what I mean? He really likes to do the nitty gritty and get involved. And I think Rockers, as technical player, is a very, very good player. It's probably just a consistency factor, but with the greatest respect, if the consistency was there, then he probably wouldn't have signed for Leeds in the summer, would he? You've got to kind of accept that. He would have been further higher up, you know, he would have been more regular at Bayern Munich and things like that, despite their brilliant midfield. And then you've obviously got players like Giabi, who we've seen flashes of, haven't we, in cup games. And, you know, when Calvin Phillips went, he wasn't part of the deal, but he was part of the deal. Obviously, discussions have been, you know, have happened at the time. So they clearly rate him very highly. And from what we've seen, he's someone who can definitely provide an impact. You look at that kind of long line of City talented youngsters. Southampton, for all their struggles, they've got very good technical young players in there who have come through that City academy, and you probably chuck him in the same category. So for him, while Leeds need results and they're getting the results in the games that they should be, for him now, this is an opportunity to really embed more in that first team. And yeah, for me, I think that's going to be one almost weird positive to come out of this, that he's going to be exposed to more first team minutes. But yeah, Rocker and McKennie, top level players, there's no issue there. And again, as I've said before, it's not like a situation 2 years ago where you get this and think, right, there's trouble here. There is at least a bit more depth to work with now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Michael, thank you very much for your comment. With Tyler Adams injured, Max Wöber can play in that position. He played in that holding midfield position in his first match for Leeds as a second half substitute away to Cardiff in the FA Cup, which is true. I mean, when Wöber comes back, do you think there'd be any temptation, actually, let's push him into that role? Or do you think it's just going to be dependent on how Rocker and McKennie kind of, you know, get going in their positions at the moment?
Yeah, it depends, doesn't it? I suppose the great thing about him is that as a more defensive-minded player, he can sit at the base of midfield. And I mean, that Cardiff game was brilliant because he was just flying in and smashing into everyone in midfield. It was brilliant. This is what you want, isn't it? But that's a great point. Again, that's someone else there, and there probably is the temptation and the fact that there are players like Cooper, Strike, those left-footed centre-backs who can then come in and play down that side. It potentially would open it up. I suppose it depends what kind of system you want to be in, and Rice's flexibility has shown that if they wanted to kind of go into a more of a holding 4-3-3, naturally you'd probably put Wöber there and someone behind him. But it just kind of depends, I suppose, on the basis of how you want your defence to be made up. That's been a huge problem for Leeds, and maybe there's an element of wanting some consistency to improve the defence, that the same players are there as much as possible. We know obviously he won't be playing against Arsenal, but Wöber's been such a huge part of that, and that while they've not suddenly turned into the best defence in the league, there seems to be a bit more assurance about them at times that just wasn't there. And it's definitely down to his presence. But then equally, you're only pushing him up one position more. So it's not exactly like he's going up the other end of the pitch and you're not seeing him. It's definitely an option. And he's just a good enough technical player to do so. Equally, you don't want to kind of base it on 45 minutes. And while he has played in the past, we saw it with Ben White, Pascal Strike, these kind of experiments as the backups to Calvin Phillips. Obviously, not every player is the same, but it just didn't quite have the same impact as it would be a centre-back. But the option's there, and it's definitely a great option to have that versatility that he brings.
Does it kind of point to the lack of squad building in a way, though, that, you know, when we get a significant injury to one of our central midfielders, and we thought this, you know, even at the start of the season, even when we signed Rocker and Adams, it still felt, well, the rest of the midfield, you've got Adam Forshaw who's injured quite a lot, and then you've got really young players there. It does point to a lack of kind of foresight with it almost, doesn't it? Because surely we should have more midfielders of experience that we can bring in rather than then going to a 19-year-old or playing players out of position.
Yeah, I guess it's tough, isn't it? Because it's unfortunate the nature of the Premier League that unless you're Man City, you can't put out two squads. You can't kind of have that depth. I mean, Man City, the backup to Rodri is Calvin Phillips, who, for all Leeds know about him very well, but he's an England international. That he's a player who is kind of was one of the best players at the Euros. That's the depth you can afford. And when you're not in that position, there's got to be an element of realistic squad building about them. I think Leeds are in a much better position squad depth wise now when you compare it to some of the teams that are around them. They're a team that have underperformed, but they've kind of looked to address it with McKennie coming in January, that there is another body in there. Maybe they looked at this and thought, okay, the midfield needs strengthening. We can chuck someone else in there. And it's probably going to be an area that they'll revisit again in the summer. But I think the Verba signing, while the cry was for a left back, there's obviously a lot of faith in Junior Firpo. Definitely knowing his versatility was surely a part of that. And I know everyone groaned when Jesse Marsh said, he can play centre mid, or Angus Kinnear was it said, he can play number 6, whatever you want from him, or number 8, sorry. But it's like, all right, here we go again. But maybe that is an element of it. So I think the depth for me is not actually a massive concern. You've seen it with Rodrigo up front, him and Bamford go in cycles of being fit and not being fit. Probably, left back, they're playing players out of position, but for where they are in the league and a non-top side in the Premier League, I think Leeds' squad depth's actually pretty decent now, and it's, again, much better than what it was. Because the more first-team players you put in, the more people you've got to keep happy.
Yeah.
The cycle that goes in there, it's tough to attract players if they know necessarily not going to play every week. So, yeah, I don't think it's a concern. And every team does it. Every team does it. If you end up playing players out of position, back plays right back, you do, right back plays centre back. It happens everywhere. So yeah, for me, it's not a major concern. And fingers crossed, the Verba and Gnonto injuries aren't too serious anyway, so it won't be problematic in certain areas.
No, I mean, it's a great point, yeah, because I remember when Phillips was there, it was like, well, why don't we sign a backup to Phillips? And it was kind of like, well, who wants to do that? Who's going to have experience and be good enough? Who's just going to want to sit on the bench? It's not going to really happen. Michael, Verba is a no-nonsense player and a talker on the pitch. It's no coincidence that since Verba has come into the team has significantly improved. Yeah, I think that's undoubtedly true. Just looking at the league table then, Tom, Leeds sat in 14th, which, feels like, so much of a healthier position, obviously, than the 19th that were in the week before. But it's so incredibly tight at the bottom. I mean, it's an unbelievable relegation battle this season. I mean, I can't remember anything like it.
No, it's probably one of the most extraordinary we've seen in the Premier League. It's, at this stage, usually you get a clear picture of at least one team who's definitely going to go down. Some cases they're already down in certain seasons, but it's such an odd season that even like Southampton, I think, will go down. You can't say with any degree of certainty because of where they are. Like Leeds had it one win, and you go from 19th to 14th. Crazy. What on earth is going on there? Like Wolves look like they pulled away and suddenly they're dragged back in. Crystal Palace haven't won a game in about 20 years and they're still 14th or 13th. It's absolutely remarkable in that respect. But it's kind of good in a way because it always feels like it's always in your hands. Last year, Leeds were going into that final day or that last week looking at Everton. Going, right, need Everton to lose. Okay, and right now we can't really do much and it's taken out of your hands. You know full well that, what Leeds on 26 points?
Yeah, 26, yeah.
35's probably going to keep you up given the number of teams down there. That everyone's, teams will win here and there, but just the pure clump of teams. That's 3 wins. That's 3 wins and suddenly you're on 35. It won't be easy. It won't be settled. It won't be really comfortable. But that's probably a margin that you can get away with a good goal difference, which Leeds surprisingly now have. Best of any team down there, and that's worth an extra point in itself. It's just remarkable though, and for Leeds, for any team down there, the more teams involved, the better, because if you win, somebody else is going to falter, and you just can't get. I see it on Twitter every Saturday. You can't get too drawn into other teams because there's so many teams down there. Someone is going to win. By law of averages, 2 of them are going to win every week. You just can't do anything about it. You'll win the next week, they won't, and it all works like that. So, if you weren't involved in it, it'd be absolutely brilliant to watch. Can you imagine Villa and that are loving it?
As a Leeds fan, I can safely say it's brilliant.
To enjoy it, haven't you? You've got to, in a weird way, enjoy it because it is bizarre like that. But yeah, it's always probably going to be in your hands. even up to the last day, because at no point here does it look like anyone's going to pull clear. And the gap to, is it Villa as the rest?
Yeah, that's the jump, isn't it? Yeah, it's
that's
a
too
38.
big now for anyone to really pull away and get to it. So I think, Leeds, Everton, Wolves, 3 wins, you might get away with it. It won't be comfortable, but you might get away with it. And that's 30% of your remaining games.
What did you make of Crystal Palace parting ways with Vieira and then bringing back Roy Hodgson? Do you think that a smart move? Is it the wrong move? I mean, how do you see that one working out?
Yeah, it might keep them up, and if it does, fine. But it's just, they deserve a lot of criticism for kind of the lack of forward thinking with it. That you've got to sit down, and Crystal Palace were bad. Don't get me wrong; they weren't a great team. I didn't think they'd be able to replicate kind of a top half finish or anything like that. But they must look at this and say, okay, we've had a tough run of fixtures, and now they play like everyone down there before the end of the season. This is the one. Equally, maybe they are looking to say, we've not won in so long. Are we guaranteed a reaction against these teams? We can't just think, okay, you can turn it on. It's not like that. It's such a form-based thing that if you've not won in so long, I mean, you can compare it with Bielsa last season, and when players will go, or some people going, okay, but Marsh has beaten this team, or Bielsa beat this team last year, back in October. You can't really do a comparison like that because it's such a momentum-based thing. Long term, it just doesn't make sense. They've really bought into this Vieira project. The fans seem to buy into it. They've bought into it quite literally in the transfer window as well. And then to go back to anyone but your old manager who basically retired and say, look, can you come back and try and get us out? There's going to be a change of direction again in the summer and you're having to reset. And it's almost like 2 years worth of work was for nothing because now you're back in this way. I think there's an element of a club like that. You're always going to be in and around the mix at times for relegation, but you've got to trust yourself that you won't get into it. I think it's probably a move that would be welcomed by the others down there. You've seen what they could do under Vieira, and whether they turned it back on or not was a point, is another point to discuss. But yeah, it just doesn't make an awful lot of sense. And it's a massive backward step in the long term for them. And even if it keeps them up this year, it's just something that just doesn't really work for me.
It is a really odd one, isn't it? And to be fair, I think the favourite thing as well that I did see off the back of it, though, is the fact that the oldest appointments, don't know who have seen this, the last 3 oldest managerial appointments in the Premier League have all been Roy Hodgson. And then in between with Watford in between. So I think that's a great stat. But as you say, that whole...
I hope he repeats the Watford performance. That will be... it was Watford, wasn't it? Yeah, last season. It was dreadful, wasn't it?
It's just an overall, as you say, like to go for Vieira, this kind of younger, forward-thinking approach, and as you say, signing players to that mould, to completely undo it and go, come on, Roy, come back. Back out, you come. Let's see if you can keep us up again. It is very odd.
And I mean, they could stay up, and then there'll be an element of them going, "Oh yeah, look, we were the right. It was the right decision to do so."
But there's
it's kind of not the right decision because there's no chance in the summer that really he should be getting a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal. They're going to have to look again in the summer. Not like Leeds who have gone, right, we're in the relegation zone, let's make a change. But they've got a manager there that, look, if it goes well, then he has every right to have an opportunity at the job, and there's every chance he could get the job. For me, even if they stay up, it's just not a decision that works long term because in 12 months they could be exactly in the same situation. And then what? You can't just keep going back to Roy going, please come along and help us for a few months.
Literally wheeling him out eventually.
You need to just commit to a course of action and accept it's going to have issues at times. And that's where they are. And the fixture list now is incredible for him. So it's just not for me, that one.
No. Guys, if you're watching along, please do hit a like on the video, get your comments in as well. Really appreciate that. So then, Tom, it can't get much harder at the weekend. It is Arsenal away from home, but Leeds have a strange history with Arsenal. We've beaten them in 2 cup finals in, Riviera. We've ruined their seasons previously. I remember the Viduka and Kuhl goals that
horrendously
Hasselbank scoring, I remember, one at Ellen Road, and that stopped them from winning the league title there. I mean, could we do something special against them again, do you think?
Nah, probably not. I mean, I mean, to be fair, Leeds have got I know it's a different manager, a different system. They can look back to that meeting at Ellen Road and went, we battered them that day. You know, in the changing room, if they're talking to each other, Leeds really, really should have won that game. Let alone got anything from it. They should have really got 3 points, but obviously football doesn't work like that, does it? Again, I don't like the term free hit. I think they can go without pressure is probably the better phrase to do so. You don't want to turn up, get hammered 6-0, and then suddenly that's -6 on your goal difference, and that element that you have has suddenly gone away, and it's not an advantage. I think, you know, a 2-goal margin loss, fine. You know, fine, a 3-1 or something like that, that's fine. Like, they're top of the league. They're cruising towards the league title. They keep Man City at bay at the moment, which is an incredibly tough thing to do. I mean, the only, not the only bit of positive, but I suppose from a Leeds perspective, you're hoping maybe they start to feel the pressure of the situation. I mean, we saw it against Bournemouth, obviously, when they went behind there, and they've got an incredible knack of coming back and winning games, which is testament to them as a team and how good they are. But you're kind of hoping maybe that's an in route. If they start to feel the pressure a little bit, the kind of expectation that they win the game, the whole crowd will be expecting them to win the game. I think everyone will be, even the away fans there. It probably won't happen, but that's probably what you're clinging on to in that case, because they're a phenomenal team, absolutely remarkable team. And, you know, they're going to win the Premier League when it comes to it.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they haven't kind of buckled a little bit. I mean, I was fully expecting it to happen at some point this season. There's still time. There's still plenty of time for them to do it, but I'm surprised they even got this far, because, you know, last season they finished 5th. They bottled those Champions League places, losing to Spurs the way they did. And I mean, how have they done it? How have they transformed into this kind of machine?
I guess it's commitment to the long-term project, isn't it? That with Mikel Arteta, that multiple times he looked, this is it, he's gone now. And they said, no, we're committed to this way of doing it, and they've reaped the rewards. I mean, remember they won the FA Cup, didn't they, when he was kind of there as well. So Arteta's already won something with the club, a significant title at that. So they've kept the faith in it, and they've reaped the rewards massively in doing so. And it's just a really talented squad throughout, a really clear identity in what they want to do. Everyone knows their roles. There's no kind of doubt in any position about it. And it's a weird position for Arsenal, an unfamiliar position for Arsenal, that injuries come along and there's always someone else to step up, which they've never really had in the past. Again, we said it there, that kind of, you know, the pressure and stuff like that. I know the Bournemouth game, and people were talking about their defining moment. I think that probably came at Villa, didn't it? When I think at one point you thought, they've thrown this away now. City have got Forest and 3 p.m. They've got no chance now. This is it. They're going to get overtaken, and that's it. They won the game. City slip up. And then obviously the Bournemouth game happens as well. So, yeah, they've done a remarkable job in dealing with the pressure. You just hope they start to feel it a little bit more as Leeds come in with no expectation. And the psychology of City playing before, that's an interesting one as well. You know what your opponents are doing and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's you can't go into it with too much expectation from a Leeds perspective.
In terms of obviously what you just said about Arteta and Arsenal and the long-term plan, and that's a reason for it working. Obviously, we've touched previously when Chelsea were having that barren run that they were on under Potter, and thinking, you know, Arsenal are the model to look at from Chelsea and Potter's perspective of, you know, just buy your time and it can work, as Arteta's proving now. Using this as a bit of a tenuous segue into a side that aren't for the forward playing at the moment, and that's Spurs, another London side. Yeah. And obviously, what do you make of the whole Conte situation? I mean, the outburst after Southampton, I thought, was brilliant, accurate, but one of those things that you probably can't really say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
and
Conte
thing as well, banned from football for the director of football. How does this all play out?
It's all coming together for once, isn't it? I think the Conte thing's been a long time coming. Nobody wanted that to continue. Spurs board, Conte himself, the fans, none of this worked. It was clear that this was never going to kind of carry on beyond the summer.
Why, though? Because
I guess he's about to make a great point, and then he's frozen.
Yeah. And make look bad before they either, you know, stick with one for more than 18 months to 2 years, or just change the plan altogether.
It's where the club is at, though, isn't it? That what is the expectation at Spurs? That's always the question. What is actually the expectation, the serious expectation? They're one of the big six clubs, but the joke is they never win anything. Nobody really knows what their aim is, what their ambition is. I mean, Champions League, they nearly won that. Conte's got an awful record in the Champions League, and they've fallen at the first hurdle with an absolutely disgraceful second leg performance. It was like they weren't aware that they were trailing at any point.
Yeah,
that's kind of been a long-standing thing. And then you get this managerial situation where Conte, we know what type of person he is. I think he's obviously had some personal things in his life that have made it a very tough 6 months or so for him. There's a combination of factors there. I think that he clearly wanted to go back to Italy. He didn't want to be at Tottenham anymore and stuff like that. It's also the case, if you think before that, when they got Nuno, that the managerial hunt, there was never really a clear identity. And when we say, what do Tottenham want? Do they actually know what they want? Because
Levy came out, didn't he, as well? Levy was saying, we want to go back to the Tottenham way and entertain football.
Exciting, attacking, entertaining football. Here's Nuno Espirito Santo. Right. Not a bad coach, but that's not the description that you're describing.
Nuno, like the, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 14th choice manager at that point as well. They went through quite a lot of, oh, are you interested? No, we're not. And just kept moving down the list until they got to Nuno.
Yeah, and it was kind of like they'd already had talks. He said, I want to bring all these people. They went, absolutely not. 3 weeks later, they went, yeah, right, come on, then you can come along. And that's it. And then they're in the position of obviously having to look around. Again, there is an opportunity, obviously, with Julian Nagelsmann, who's been heavily linked. I think at this stage in his career,
they'll just ruin him.
But at least then, in terms of the appointment, that fits the bill of we want attacking, we want entertaining, we want to be kind of a clear identity in what we want to do. And Spurs fans who've had to put up with bad football for years since the Pochettino era probably would like that as well. And they, in a way, kind of deserve that for putting up for what they've had to do so. But there's an opportunity for them to take someone who, at his stage in his career,
and could be long term.
Well, yeah, and there's clearly a chance for a project. I suppose immaturity may come into play, obviously, as a youngish coach and senior players there, how much they'll accept him and stuff like that, and their willingness to be flexible as he wants them to be. But there's an opportunity there. But it's Spurs, so do you trust them to actually make the sensible appointment or not? Or do they go sentiment to go to Pochettino? I don't know, but there's a genuine opportunity for them there. It's almost like they've written off this season.
How much of this do you reckon falls to Daniel Levy? Because, like, again, the Conte appointment, when it happened, I thought, okay, that's a little bit mental. Like, obviously, what he's done in Italy, what he's done elsewhere, you thought, this is a great appointment. He's a serial winner. Go and back him. And then they let him get Perisic, Bentancur, and no second striker.
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of
Richarlison in this case, but
it's kind of also the almost looking at CVs rather than identity, isn't it? Going, okay, we want this, we want that. We'll get Jose Mourinho because Jose Mourinho wins stuff. We'll get Antonio Conte wins stuff, but not really fitting what you've previously very publicly described. And then obviously that's always going to come back to the figure who said it, who in this case was Daniel Levy. So I think with that as well, Nagelsmann, a person there that has won stuff, of course, but he's not exactly the serial winner. And there's other names that will be linked as well. I mean, Roberto De Zerbi is the interesting one. He shouldn't stay with Brighton and continue the great job that you're doing there. But like Potter, how often do these opportunities come about? And again, he's someone who's not a serial winner as a Conte or Mourinho or stuff like that, but would be a remarkable appointment if they could pull it off. And again, would fit that bill of entertaining, attacking, clear identity type football. But you just don't trust them to make it. You just know there's going to be someone that comes up. They go, oh, we've got to get him. And it won't work. But in a way, at least they've said, look, we're just going to go with an interim to the end of the season. If we write off this season, who cares, whatever. Let's just get to the summer and rebuild. But they need to go all in on it because they can't keep doing this every 18 to 24 months. You won't get anywhere.
I think giving Stellini the interim job is unusual as well. It's not often that the assistant stays on after the manager leaves, but obviously in this case, Stellini's already had that cracker as being the manager whilst Conte was off ill, and to his credit, actually turned in some decent results for Spurs during that time.
Yeah, I think fundamentally Spurs are in the top 4, right? It's not like they're 10th, not like where Chelsea are, and they've obviously had a season of struggle. Clearly, there's going to be the same way of playing. There's not going to be a huge, that's it, we're going 4-1, 4 this. It's basically going to play the same way. Then it's almost like we want the system, but we need to get rid of the person who's saying all these things that is just can't be good to anyone. So in a way, they've found that happy medium ground, haven't they? The system's fine. The system does okay. It's got us into the top 4. If we can continue that and finish in the top 4, fine. But that's kind of it. So they've at least found that, and we know that Stellini is going to continue it. But it is, like you say, it is a bit odd that you think the whole coaching staff would go, but they've somehow managed to persuade him to stay, or maybe Conte said, no, I want you to stay, I want you to do it, or whatever. We won't really know that full thing. But yeah, they've, in a weird way, found a good short-term solution to a problem. It's only going to be worth it, though, if they come out in the summer and get something good and do something.
And the Paratici situation, I mean, banned from football, which, as a director of football, the top 4 club, probably isn't ideal.
Yeah, it's not great. Ideally, if you could not be that, I'd try and do that. But again, I suppose it probably for them is at least an opportunity to look at the way they operate and how it works. Because I know Pochettino's got, if they want a Pochettino, there's going to be an issue with a potential director of football and stuff like that. So they go, okay, because we want this manager, the fans want this manager, and we know it's worked before. Do we have to kind of change the way we operate to make it best for everyone? So they'll have that opportunity to do so now. But again, it probably comes with managerial, does a coach just want to coach and he wants someone else to do that? Or do they want to have that kind of that control over that element as well? So at least they've got that opportunity now to look at the structure of the club and how it's going to work. But yeah, again, it's never good, obviously, for that. But to come at this time, it's almost like all that bad news is coming out for Spurs at once. Or bad, good, however you were on the Conte fence. But all this news is coming out during a time where they're under pressure in the top 4. So it feels like, it's kind of just get it all out of the way with and done. But it's a good opportunity now to look for the way they run and how they're structured.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to other things then, fantasy football, Tom.
Oh yeah.
What are you making of it? What should we be looking out for this week?
I'm doing quite well, so I'm quite happy at the moment. I've managed. I'm on that second chance league. I'm 13,000th in that, so I've had a good post-Christmas period. Obviously, a massive double game week. This huge double game week. There is one coming. I think game week 34 because there's the FA Cup semi-final. So Brighton, Man United, Man City. Yeah, that's it. And whoever they're playing will obviously be out of action. Yeah. Brighton, I think, meant to play Man City anyway, so that kind of works for the two of them. So there is another double game week, but I think this is the one where you've really got to go for it. If there's any chips available, you triple captains, bench boosts, whatever, use them now. Captaincy is an issue here because I spoke before about Haaland. I don't have Haaland. Haaland's not been spotted in training today ahead of that Saturday early kickoff. Maybe this wasn't mind games and stuff like that. He's got a pretty bad injury record for a striker of his age and stuff like that. Maybe he actually is out now and this is going to be problematic. But even then, they're one game. It's Liverpool at home. Okay, they should win it. The likes of Harry Kane and that play once as well. I mean, Marcus Rashford is going to be the naturally one to go to. But, I mean, if Kai Havertz is well, he was dropped out of the Germany squad for illness. Him or João Felix look brilliant options at the moment. I think it's well worth getting on board this Chelsea kind of turn up in events as well. And with 2 home games for them. And if you've got the cover of Brighton, asset or a couple of those, if you've got the cover for that game week coming up, because they play twice this week. And then, of course, in the future, they'll have a double game week as well. Yeah, massive opportunity. This isn't the make or break week, but you've really got to target it and really get involved with it because this could be the one that actually potentially decides final leagues as we're very close to the end of the season.
Yeah. Brighton, as you mentioned, actually, they've got Brentford at home and Bournemouth away on this game week, whilst Brentford have got obviously Brighton away and then Manchester United away. So I'm a little bit unsure on what to do with Ivan Toney, if I'm honest, at this stage. But if Haaland's still out, then may as well stick with him for now.
Yeah, and obviously it's all based on fixtures and, more than anything really is how I play fantasy football, you focus on that. And anytime a player's got 2 over 1, unless City have got Bournemouth at home and they, should be putting 6 past them, then you go, right, okay. Whereas it's not the same here. They could still score some goals. But I'd probably even be looking towards Tony over Haaland in that situation anyway, because there's 2 opportunities. He's a penalty taker, great in form, obviously made his England debut, didn't he, recently, which shows how good of a form that he's been in. The more double game week players you can get in, the better. The more opportunities you can get for points, the better. But with bench boost, stick the players like Saka, Martinelli, Ødegaard, whoever those Arsenal assets are, put them on the bench and play the bench boost, because they should still get a few points, shouldn't they, against a relegation candidate at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Tom, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed the video, please do pop a like on the video. Also subscribe to the channel for more Leeds United content and content on our other teams here in the region. Tom, pleasure as always, mate. Speak to you next week. We'll be back.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks, mate.